In the heart of Dubai, a city where the skyline reaches for the heavens and dreams are often traded for fortunes, one woman's simple wish sets in motion a series of events no one could have predicted. Kylian Mbappé, famed for his genius on the turf football field, was about to show the world that true greatness lies beyond the game. The smell of freshly polished marble and luxury perfumes filled the air in the grand lobby of the Azure Crown Hotel, a five-star gem nestled among the towering skyscrapers of Dubai. For most guests, the lavish setting was just another day, but for Maria, it felt like an entirely different world, one where she worked tirelessly with a mop in hand and a weary smile on her face. Maria had arrived in Dubai from the Philippines 2 years earlier, carrying little more than a suitcase of second-hand clothes and a heart full of hopes. Every window she wiped, every floor she swept, was a silent promise to her daughter back home. One day, this will all be for you. The hotel was buzzing that afternoon, hosting a major sports gala with celebrities arriving in sleek black cars. Chatter among the cleaners was electric, despite being told to remain unnoticed. "They say Mbappé is staying here," Anna, her closest friend on the cleaning team, whispered as they polished the brass handles on the grand staircase. Maria paused, cloth still in hand. "Mbappé here?" Anna nodded eagerly. "Room 1703, penthouse." Maria's heart raced. She had followed Mbappé's career for years, cheering him on as if he were part of her own family. To think he was staying under the same roof felt almost unreal, but rules were rules. Cleaners were expected to be invisible, merely a part of the backdrop. Approaching a guest, especially someone famous, was strictly forbidden, yet the thought lingered, persistent and hopeful. What harm could there be in asking for a simple autograph? Throughout the day, Maria had caught glimpses of him. Once in the lounge, laughing with his teammates. Another time near the elevator, scrolling through. His phone. He seemed exactly how she had imagined. Humble and at ease, not hiding behind an entourage. It only made her wish grow stronger. As the afternoon wore on and guests prepared for the gala dinner upstairs, Maria's shift was nearly over. She wiped the same marble counter 3 times, her nerves building. Across the room, Mbappé sat alone in an armchair, reading a magazine. No security, no crowd, just him. The warm, golden light from the Dubai sunset bathed his face. Maria's heart pounded. If she didn't do it now, she never would. She gripped her small blue notebook, the same one she used for shopping lists, and took slow, deliberate steps toward him. Each step seemed to echo in her ears. When she reached him, she paused. Up close, Mbappé looked even more down to earth, more approachable. His sneakers were slightly worn, and his jacket hung loosely on the chair. He looked up, sensing her approach. "Excuse me, sir," Maria said, her voice trembling, holding out her notebook and a pen. "Could I please have your autograph?" Mbappé smiled warmly and set his magazine aside. He reached for the pen, but before he could sign, a sharp voice sliced through the air. "Maria!" It was Mr. Khaled, the hotel manager. His crisp suit and even sharper tone froze everyone around him. "What do you think you're doing?" He barked, storming across the floor, his face twisted in anger. Maria's cheeks flushed. Instinctively, she pulled the notebook back, as if it were forbidden. "I'm sorry, sir," she stammered. I just wanted a—" "You're here to work, not harass guests," Mr. Khaled interrupted, his voice rising. Nearby guests turned to watch, some pulling out their phones. Maria's throat tightened. She had seen workers disciplined before, but never so publicly. Mbappé stood up slowly, his face unreadable. "She wasn't harassing anyone," he said calmly. "She was very polite." But Mr. Khaled dismissed him with a wave of his hand. Not even looking at him. "Sir, I apologize for the disturbance," he said, his tone colder. "She'll be dealt with immediately." Maria's heart sank. She could feel her job slipping away. "You're dismissed," Mr. Khaled said, his voice dripping with disdain. "Clear out your things." He grabbed her ID badge and yanked it off her neck, the plastic tag clattering to the floor. The sound echoed through the lobby, louder than any shout. For a long moment, no one moved. Maria stood frozen, staring at the badge on the floor. Her hands shook, and then a pair of worn sneakers appeared before her. Mbappé bent down, picked up the badge with care, and gently placed it back in her hands. Maria's eyes widened, disbelief written across her face. He smiled, not the kind of smile reserved for crowds, but a quiet, kind one just for her. Then he turned toward Mr. Khaled. The atmosphere thickened. A battle was about to unfold, but it wasn't one fought with fists or anger. It would be fought with something stronger. The lobby, once a serene backdrop of luxury, now crackled with tension. Guests pretended to be absorbed in their phones, but they were listening. The staff exchanged anxious looks, frozen mid-task. Mr. Khaled adjusted his suit, his irritation growing. "Mr. Mbappé," he said, his tone forced and polite, "please accept our apologies. We pride ourselves on maintaining the highest standards at the Azure Crown." Maria clutched her ID badge tightly, her knuckles white. She wished she could disappear into the polished floor beneath her. But Mbappé didn't move. He stayed by her side, a calming presence in the growing storm. "Is firing someone for asking for an autograph part of those highest standards?" Mbappé's words, though calm, cut through the air with precision. Mr. Khaled's smile faltered. "We have strict policies to protect our guests' privacy and comfort, and those policies justify humiliating your staff in front of everyone?" Mbappé's gaze never wavered. His soft words struck harder than any loud argument. Nearby guests shifted, some nodding in silent agreement. A man in a tailored suit subtly lowered his phone after recording the exchange. The tension in the air thickened, waiting for Mr. Khaled's next move. Mr. Khaled cleared his throat, his earlier confidence slipping. "This employee has violated our code of conduct. We must ensure discipline," he said, trying to regain control. "Discipline," Mbappé repeated thoughtfully, turning to look at Maria, whose eyes were brimming with tears she was struggling to hold back. "A simple request for an autograph is the offense?" Maria gave a slight shake of her head, as if to apologize for even asking, but Mbappé's next words stopped her in her tracks. "If she leaves," he said, looking at Mr. Khaled but speaking loud enough for everyone to hear, "then I leave too." A stunned silence fell over the room. Mr. Khaled's mouth moved, but no words came out at first. Losing a guest like Mbappé wasn't just about one booking. It was about reputation, prestige, and the kind of publicity that no amount of money could buy. "But sir," Mr. Khaled stammered, "surely we can resolve this privately." "No need," Mbappé replied firmly. "We are already in public." The lobby buzzed again, but this time it was different. Guests exchanged glances, and some of them even dared to step closer, eager to witness what would unfold. Maria stood frozen, overwhelmed with gratitude and fear. Was she really costing him something important? Then a woman from the crowd, dressed in a black abaya with a diamond-studded watch, approached quietly. Without a word, she handed Maria a clean white handkerchief. Maria took it, her hands trembling as she wiped her face. It was a small act, but it felt like a breath of hope in the midst of the chaos. Mbappé turned to Maria and gently asked, "Are you okay?" Maria nodded quickly, though her throat was tight with emotion. Seeing this, Mbappé addressed the crowd, his voice steady and calm. "Kindness costs nothing. It demands nothing. Yet it reveals everything about who we are." His words resonated deeply. He wasn't shouting, demanding, or making a scene. He was simply stating a truth that everyone could understand. Mr. Khaled, cornered, attempted a weak recovery. "Perhaps we acted too hastily," he said, forcing a smile. Of course, Maria. Can stay. We value all our employees. But the damage was done. The apology couldn't undo the humiliation. It couldn't change the fact that, given the chance, the hotel had chosen pride over humanity. Mbappé remained calm, but something in his eyes had changed. "Do you have family here?" he asked Maria. Maria shook her head. "Only in the Philippines, sir." "And do you enjoy working here?" Mbappé pressed gently. She hesitated, unsure of how to answer. What could she say? That she had endured every shift for the pay, holding on to the fragile hope of one day providing for her daughter. "I am grateful for the opportunity, sir," Maria replied carefully. Mbappé studied her for a moment before making a decision. "If you want," he said softly, "there's a place for you on my team." Maria blinked, unsure she had heard him correctly. "I'm always looking for people who work with heart," he continued. "People who treat others with dignity, even when they themselves aren't treated the same way." His words, sincere and unexpected, struck Maria harder than any insult Mr. Khaled could have thrown. I would be honored, sir," she stammered. Soft applause rippled through the crowd. It wasn't loud or theatrical, but genuine, a show of respect for what they had just witnessed. Mbappé smiled warmly. Then he offered her his hand, not as a celebrity but as a fellow human being. Maria accepted it, and for the first time that day, she felt truly seen. Meanwhile, Mr. Khaled stood rigid, pale, unable to hide the damage. To his pride, no amount of polished marble or luxury branding could repair the blow his hotel had just suffered. "I'll arrange for your transfer," Mbappé added, turning briefly to the flustered manager. "You won't need to return here." Maria's legs nearly gave way beneath her. The weight of relief, joy, and disbelief almost overwhelmed her. She clutched the white handkerchief against her chest and whispered a silent prayer of thanks. Mbappé turned to the gathered guests, offering a small nod before guiding Maria out of the lobby. It wasn't a scene of shame, nor a dismissal. It was a new beginning. Outside, the golden glow of the Dubai sunset painted the sky in shades of amber. For Maria, it felt like stepping into a new world, one she had only dreamed of until now. The streets of Dubai shimmered beneath the fading sunlight as Mbappé and Maria walked toward a sleek black van waiting by the side entrance. The city buzzed with life, but within Maria everything was still, a mix of disbelief and a cautious, trembling hope. As they reached the van, Salah's driver stepped out and opened the door with a respectful nod. Mbappé gestured for Maria to enter first. She hesitated, feeling the weight of what she was leaving behind. Those long, exhausting shifts, the endless pretending, the constant fear of doing something wrong. But then, with a deep breath, she stepped inside. The cool air of the van and the scent of fresh citrus filled the space. Maria sat at the edge of the seat, unsure where to place her hands or her bag, feeling awkward in the unfamiliar comfort. Mbappé noticed her stiffness and gave a soft chuckle. "Relax, Maria," he said. "You're among friends now." The van pulled away from the hotel, merging into the ebb and flow of Dubai's evening traffic. Maria twisted the hem of her blouse between her fingers, lost in thought. "Sir, I don't know how to thank you," she said quietly. "You don't have to," Mbappé replied, gazing out the window. "Sometimes the right thing is simply the right thing. No thanks needed." The streets outside blurred into lights and shadows as the city transformed for the night. Maria thought about her daughter, her face lighting up every time they spoke on video calls, always asking when she could join her in Dubai. Maybe now she could finally start building that bridge. Mbappé's home wasn't far, set in an exclusive, Neighborhood just off Gira, the villa exuded a sense of quiet elegance. White walls, clean lines, and fragrant jasmine gardens hinted at a preference for simplicity over extravagance. When they arrived, Mbappé turned to her with a smile. "Come inside, meet the team," he said. Inside, the atmosphere was warm and casual. Two women from Egypt greeted Maria with kind smiles. Mbappé's personal chef, an older Italian man, waved from the kitchen. A young man, probably a fitness coach, nodded as he passed with a bottle of water. "This isn't a place of titles and ranks," Mbappé explained. "Everyone matters. Everyone contributes." Maria felt a sudden release in her chest. A weight she hadn't even realized she was carrying seemed to lift. Salah's wife, Maggie, soon appeared, offering a gentle welcome and tea. Over steaming cups, Mbappé explained that they had been looking for someone trustworthy to help maintain the villa, not just someone to clean, but someone who brought good energy to the home. Maria could hardly believe her ears. Was this really happening? As the evening went on, Mbappé's young daughters peeked shyly from behind the kitchen door, giggling quietly. Maria smiled and waved at them, and they waved back, their shyness slowly fading away. It was such a simple, ordinary moment, but it caused something inside Maria to break, a dam she had built over the years to survive the loneliness and struggles. Her eyes filled with tears, but she quickly wiped them away, embarrassed. Mbappé noticed but didn't comment or make her feel worse. Instead, he simply said, "It's all right to cry when you're safe." His words hit Maria harder than anything else. For the first time in a long while, she felt truly safe. After tea, Mbappé handed Maria a small envelope. Inside, she found a generous advance payment and a handwritten note. "Thank you for being you." There were no conditions, no reminders of her place, just simple gratitude. The note was a reminder that she was seen, valued, and respected. The next morning, the story had already spread. Clips from the incident at the Azure Crown Hotel flooded social media, showing Mbappé standing beside Maria, defending her dignity with quiet but firm words. The headlines shifted from football scores and match results to something much deeper. People around the world praised Mbappé for his actions, Mbappé's true victory, humility in the heart of Dubai, and a star's greatest moment happened off the pitch. It wasn't about his goals or trophies. It was about kindness, dignity, and standing up for what's right. Maria's phone, an old model she had barely kept running, buzzed non-stop with messages from old friends, distant relatives, and even people she hadn't heard from in years. They offered congratulations, prayers, and blessings, but Maria remained grounded. She helped Maggie in the kitchen, learned the routines of the villa, and made silly faces at Mbappé's daughters when no one was looking. Her life had changed, yes, but she knew that true gratitude wasn't in loud celebrations, but in quiet actions. Meanwhile, the Azure Crown Hotel scrambled to do damage control. Mr. Khalid was quietly reassigned to a remote position within the company. The hotel issued a formal apology, but the world had already made up its mind. No amount of glossy PR could undo the truth of what had happened, and Mbappé, he never spoke about the incident publicly. No interviews, no boasting. He simply continued to live the same way he played football, with grace, humility, and unwavering purpose. A few weeks later one evening, Mbappé found Maria in the garden, watering a row of new jasmine plants. He crouched beside her and said, "They say the smell reminds people of home." Maria smiled. "It does very much." He nodded thoughtfully, then added, "Home isn't always a place. Sometimes it's the people who stand by you when you need it the most." Maria looked up at the deep blue sky speckled with stars. It was then that she realized she had found a kind of home here, not defined by walls or wealth, but by kindness and respect. Not every story needs to be dramatic to be powerful. Some of the best stories are made of quiet acts of courage. And Maria's story had only just begun. The days that followed settled into a gentle rhythm for Maria. Gone were the endless corridors, the fear of making a mistake, and the constant worry of being overlooked. Here, at Mbappé's villa, her work felt lighter. It wasn't because her tasks had become easier, it was because the weight of stress, fear, and loneliness had lifted. Every morning, Maria woke up early to the sound of birds outside her small but comfortable room. She opened the windows to let in the warm Dubai breeze, her footsteps soft against the tiled floors. Her first task of the day was to prepare the main living area, an open, airy space filled with photographs of Mbappé's family, simple but elegant furniture, and the fragrance of fresh flowers. Maggie often joined her in the mornings, offering her a cup of coffee and chatting about the family's schedule. Their conversations flowed easily, without the strained formalities that Maria had grown used to at her old jobs. One morning, as Maria arranged fresh jasmine in a vase, Maggie said, "You have a calm energy. It makes the house feel peaceful." Maria smiled, feeling a warmth bloom in her chest. It was a compliment she had never dared hope for, not about her work, but about who she was as a person. At lunchtime, Maria helped set the table for the family. Mbappé's daughters, now more comfortable with her, often lingered in the kitchen, talking excitedly about school and their games. Maria listened with a smile, laughing quietly at their stories, sometimes braiding their hair when they asked. There were no sharp reprimands here for minor mistakes, no humiliation when something went wrong. Instead, Maria was met with gentle corrections and reminders, and there was an understanding that respect wasn't something that needed to be earned through fear. It was something given freely. One afternoon, Mbappé returned from training earlier than usual. He found Maria cleaning the patio, her hair tucked under a simple scarf, her face flushed from the heat. He offered her a cold bottle of water and said, "Take a break. You've earned it." Maria hesitated, as years of being told to work without pause had made her cautious. But the sincerity in Mbappé's voice left no room for doubt. They sat under the shade of a large umbrella, sipping water and watching the sunlight dance across the pool. "You know," Mbappé said thoughtfully, "when I was a boy, people didn't expect much from me. They said I was too small, too quiet, not strong enough." Maria listened, surprised by this revelation. "But strength isn't always loud," he continued. "Sometimes it's quiet. It's getting up when no one notices. It's being kind when you could be cruel." He looked at her with a small smile. "You have that kind of strength, Maria." She blinked, overwhelmed, unsure how to respond. No one had ever said such things to her before. Certainly not someone like him. At night, when her duties were finished, Maria sometimes walked alone in the garden. The scent of jasmine filled the air, mixing with the sounds of the city beyond the villa's walls. One night, as she sat on a bench beneath a fig tree, she received a video call from her daughter. The little girl's face lit up the screen, eyes wide with awe. "Are you really working for Mr. Mbappé?" she asked in Tagalog, her voice full of wonder. Maria laughed, wiping a tear from her cheek. "Yes, anak, and he's even kinder than you can imagine." Her daughter's smile was all the reward Maria needed. All the sacrifices, the loneliness, the long days, they had all been worth it. Meanwhile, the story of Maria's encounter at the hotel continued to spread. People shared video clips, articles, and stories praising Mbappé for standing up for what was right. His actions were celebrated not for their drama, but for the quiet strength they embodied. And Maria, though she was living a different life, now knew deep in her heart that it wasn't just luck or chance that had brought her here. It was kindness. A kindness that, in the end, changed everything. As time passed, Maria found herself settling into a new routine. Gone were the days of endless corridors and fearing the worst at every turn. At Mbappé's villa, her work felt lighter, not because the tasks were any less demanding, but because the weight of fear and loneliness had been lifted. Each morning, she woke to the sound of birds chirping outside her window. She would open the windows to let the warm Dubai breeze fill the room, her footsteps quiet as she moved about. Her first duty was preparing the main living area, a space that was bright and airy, decorated with photographs of Mbappé's family and simple, elegant furniture. The scent of fresh flowers always lingered in the air. Maggie often joined her in the mornings, offering a cup of coffee and chatting about the family's day. The conversations were easy, natural, without any of the formalities Maria had grown used to in her previous jobs. One morning, as Maria arranged fresh jasmine in a vase, Maggie looked at her and said, "You have a calming energy. It makes the house feel peaceful." Maria smiled, the warmth of the compliment filling her heart. It was something she hadn't expected, something that had nothing to do with her work, but with her presence in the house. At lunchtime, Maria would help set the table for the family. Mbappé's daughters, now more at ease around her, would linger in the kitchen, chatting about school, their friends and games. Maria listened, laughing quietly at their stories, and sometimes braided their hair when they asked. It was a relaxed, joyful atmosphere, with no reprimands or harsh words. Instead, there were gentle corrections and constant respect, an environment where kindness was shared freely. One afternoon, Mbappé returned from training earlier than usual. He found Maria cleaning the patio, her hair tucked under a simple scarf, her face flushed from the heat. He handed her a cold bottle of water and said, "Take a break, you've earned it." Maria hesitated. Years of being told to work non-stop had made her cautious, but the sincerity in Mbappé's voice left no room for doubt. They sat together under a wide umbrella, sipping water and watching the sunlight dance across the pool. "You know," Mbappé said thoughtfully, "when I was younger, people didn't expect much from me. They said I was too small, too quiet, not strong enough." Maria listened, surprised. "But strength isn't always loud," he continued. "Sometimes it's quiet. It's getting up when no one notices. It's being kind when you could be cruel." He looked at her with a small smile. "You have that kind of strength, Maria." She blinked, overwhelmed by his words. No one had ever said something like that to her before, especially not someone like him. In the evenings, after her duties were finished, Maria would often walk alone in the garden. The air was filled with the scent of jasmine, mixing with the distant sounds of the city beyond the villa. One evening, as she sat on a bench beneath a fig tree, her phone rang. It was a video call from her daughter. Her little girl's face lit up the screen, eyes full of wonder. "Are you really working for Mr. Mbappé?" she asked, her voice filled with awe. Maria laughed, wiping a tear from her cheek. "Yes, Anak, and he's even kinder than you can imagine." Her daughter smiled, and Maria felt a deep sense of peace. The sacrifices, the loneliness, the long hours, they had all led her here, and it was worth it. Meanwhile, the story of what had happened at the Azure Crown Hotel continued to spread. The video of Mbappé standing up for Maria, defending her, with calm but firm words, went viral. People from all over the world shared the clip praising Mbappé for his kindness. Articles weren't written about his goals or his career on the field. They were written about the dignity and respect he showed for someone who had been dismissed for simply asking for an autograph. Maria's phone, an old model she had barely managed to keep running, buzzed constantly with messages from friends, relatives, and even people she hadn't heard from in years. They congratulated her, offered prayers, and sent their blessings. But Maria remained grounded. She didn't get caught up in the excitement. Instead, she continued to help in the kitchen, learn the villa's routines, and share quiet moments. With the family, her life had changed, yes, but Maria knew that true gratitude wasn't in loud celebrations. It was in the small, meaningful actions that formed her new life. She had found a sense of peace in the simple things, quiet mornings, shared smiles, and genuine kindness. Meanwhile, the Azure Crown Hotel was left scrambling to save face. Mr. Khaled had been quietly reassigned to a remote location, and the hotel issued a formal apology. But it didn't matter. The world had already made up its mind. The truth was out. No amount of polished marble or fancy branding could erase what had happened. Mbappé never spoke about the incident publicly. He didn't need to. He simply continued to live with the same grace, humility, and purpose that had made him a star. A few weeks later, Mbappé found Maria in the garden, tending to a line of new jasmine plants. He crouched beside her and said, "They say the smell reminds people of home." Maria smiled. "It does very much." He nodded thoughtfully. "Home isn't always a place. Sometimes it's the people who stand by you when you need it the most." Maria looked up at the deep blue sky, now speckled with stars. It was then that she realized she had found a kind of home here, not defined by walls, wealth, or luxury, but by kindness and respect. Not every story needed to be dramatic to be powerful. Sometimes the best stories are made from quiet acts of courage. Maria's story had only just begun. If this story moved you, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more inspiring tales that touch the heart. Share this video with someone who could use a little kindness today, and let's spread positivity together. Comment below with your thoughts. What's one act of kindness that changed your life? We love hearing from you. Stay tuned for more incredible stories that remind us all of the power of compassion. Thanks for watching, and remember, kindness always finds its way back. God bless.